Hey everyone, this is the video going over the lesson from Friday, Unit 1.5, Day 3, Point Slope Form. So this is the very last lesson we are doing before we start reviewing for the CBA next week. Now, a little bit of background. The beginning part will be a little bit of review, but the main piece, the point slope form part, will probably be brand new, so don't be surprised by that. First thing though, you probably know this part, slope-intercept form. Go ahead and pause here and write down that information in the top left-hand box. Make sure you remember that M and B are the only things that get replaced in the equation. M stands for the slope, B stands for the y-intercept, and then the black text, the y and the x, do not get replaced at all. The one that we're learning today is called point slope form. Now here's the original equation. All the colored pieces are the ones that are going to get replaced. So M for slope, we leave a blank right there in the middle. And then the point that we're given, the x coordinate goes inside the parentheses, the y coordinate goes outside the parentheses on this side of the problem. So go ahead and fill in those three pieces there. Make sure you include the original, the words, and the blanks there. And feel free to pause and get that caught up. So let's move on to this part. And just a quick thing too with that, we will start all of our problems with this template right here, kind of like a skeleton equation. Nothing's plugged in, but all the pieces that we need to have there are there and ready to go for us. So quick review, we do need to know how to multiply fractions. Anytime you have a fraction multiplied by a whole number, make sure to just turn that whole number into a fraction itself by just putting it over 1. Fractions, when they're being multiplied, are the easiest thing because you actually just go straight across. So 2 times 14 is 28 on the top. 7 times 1 is 7 on the bottom. Now, check and make sure. Can you divide to simplify it? Yeah, you can. 28 divided by 7 actually comes out to a nice whole number. It's just 4. So that is our answer for that problem. Move on to the next one. Notice we've got a negative there. Again, 1 times negative 3 on the top. We have negative 3. 6 times positive 1 on the bottom. Remember, it's not negative on both parts, so it's just 6. Now, be careful. It's not 6 divided by negative 3, so don't be tempted to do that. You can't divide negative 3 into 6 evenly, but you can reduce the problem a little bit. And you can divide the top and the bottom by 3. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2, so our final answer is negative 1/2. Go ahead and pause here, try the last one on your own, and then press play when you're ready to see the actual answer for it. Alright, so again, this one a little bit trickier. There's a negative in front of it. Just place it on the numerator. So really it's going to be negative 2 over positive 3 times 9 over 1. Just make it a little bit easier for you to see. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. 3, just positive 3. Remember, you don't put negatives on both parts. Just 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 18 divided by 3 should give you negative 6 for a final answer. So just a quick refresher on that because you will have to do a little bit of multiplying fractions in the assignment that you do today. Alright, so let's actually put these into practice. First things first, let's read through our problem. It says, write the equation of the line with a slope of 2, kind of an important piece of information there, and a y-intercept of 0, negative 4. So looking back at my equations I had, if I have a slope and a y-intercept, should I use the slope-intercept form or the point-slope form? Technically, I could use both of them actually. Both of them would get me the answer I want, but since I specifically have an intercept here, I'm going to use the slope-intercept form because it's much more specific. So I'm going to start off with y equals mx plus b. Remember, the only things that are going to get filled in are the m and the b. Well, if I just plug those in, m is slope, and it tells me that there's a slope of 2. So I'm going to replace m with 2. X is going to stay where it is. Nothing's changing about that. B is the y-intercept. So if I look at my equation, the y-intercept is at -4, which means I just replace plus b with -4. And there's my slope-intercept form ready to go. So that one is kind of the easiest possible thing you could get. Not really likely to find, but that's what you would ideally like to see. Now if we take a look at number 2, let's compare with that one. We are told that we have a slope of 2/3, so we already know our slope, which is nice. And it's passing through the point -6, 2. So I know at some point this graph is going to hit that line. Or sorry, that point. Is that point a y-intercept though? Kind of like this one here. Does it look like that one? No. Not only does it not say y-intercept like the first one did, it doesn't have a 0 in the problem, which is what you have to have a intercept point. That's why we have the point slope form. When they give you just a random point and then the slope that goes with it, you use this to figure out the equation that you want. And I've already drawn in here on your notes page the skeleton equation. So y minus blank equals blank times parentheses x minus blank. So really you're just plugging in and solving from there. You're always going to start with the skeleton if you have a point and its slope. That's how you begin the problem. So let's look at what we got. We have a slope of 2/3, and then here's our point. Here's the x coordinate, here's the y coordinate. So let's plug it into the appropriate spots. Slope, if we look back here, is right in the middle, right in front of the parentheses. So in my equation, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put 2/3 right there in front of my parenthesis. The y coordinate goes with y minus. The x coordinate goes with x minus. Makes sense. X with x, y with y. So I'm going to put -6 inside the parenthesis. Notice it says x minus -6. I didn't get rid of this negative just because there's a subtraction sign there. And then it's y minus just a regular 2. So that's how I begin my problem. Now I have to do all the algebra that goes along with it from here, which is where all the work kind of comes in. First of all, something you should pay attention to, when you have minus a negative, you're going to want to rewrite that to start off with. So let's rewrite everything else. Okay, and what is x minus -6 really the same thing as? When you have minus a negative, it's actually the same thing as adding. Not adding a negative, just adding. So I can change this to x plus 6. Much nicer way to work through this problem than dealing with that minus a negative. So please do that first before you do anything else. Alright, now we've got something on the outside of a parentheses, which means we have to do some, hopefully you know what this is called. Hopefully you're thinking in your head. This is distributing. So I'm going to keep the y minus 2 over here, and I'm going to multiply 2/3 times x and times +6. That one's going to be a little tricky. We'll get to that part. But 2/3 times x is super easy. You just put them together. So 2/3 times x is 2/3 x. Just squish together. Now I'm going to do 6 times 2/3 off to the side over here. And let's actually make 6 a fraction like we practiced before, just making it 6/1. Feel free to pause here if you need to get a little bit caught up. And I'm now going to multiply just straight across. So 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3. If I divide that, 12 divided by 3 equals 4. So that actually means that 2/3 times 6 is the same thing as +4. And I do need to put that plus sign there. Otherwise, if I leave nothing there, it's really like I'm multiplying 4 to everything, and I don't want to do that. My goal is I want to get the equation of the line, which means I want it to look like the slope-intercept form, where I have y by itself. That's my goal, is I want it to look like this, even though I started with point slope form. So the very last thing I have to do to get y by itself is get rid of this -2 piece. So I'm going to add 2. It does not go with the 2/3 x. Those are not like terms. It does go with the +4 though. So really my final answer is y equals 2/3 x plus 6. There's my equation of the line with a slope of 2/3, and it will pass through -6, 2. So go ahead and copy that down if you need to. Pause here if needed. Please make sure if you're not understanding that you are pausing and raising your hand, or asking one of the teachers in the room if you're unsure how to do it. Alright, so let's move on to a little bit more tricky of problems to work with. Notice this time they don't just straight away give you the slope, but they do tell you that the slope is parallel to this equation, so that's going to be kind of important. They do give us the point though, which is kind of necessary. You have to have the point. You can't really figure that out on your own. So let's go ahead and plug that in where we know it belongs. This is the x coordinate, this is the y. X goes with x, y goes with y. So I've got a bunch of stuff already filled in. I just have to figure out this slope. Now remember we talked about parallel lines not only don't intersect, but their slopes are special. They're equal to each other. That's how they never intersect, is because they have the same steepness. So if parallel lines have the same exact slope, and they're telling me that our equation has a slope parallel to this one, well, what's the slope in this equation right here? Which number there is the slope? Well, it's the thing that's attached to x, so it's -2. Well, if I want a slope that's parallel, that means it's got to be the exact same number, which means my slope is also -2. So I just figured out the slope from that information, even though it didn't tell it to me straight away. Now I can just go about solving like I did last time. First of all, check and make sure, do you have any double negatives? And you do, you got one right here, so let's change that before we do anything else. So this is really y plus 4 instead of y minus -4. Still -2 in the front, still x minus 4. Nothing's really changed there. First thing I'm going to do is distribute. So I still have y plus 4. Kind of nice, there's no fractions this time, so it's just -2x. -2 times -4 is going to end up being +8. Be really careful about that. Negative times a negative is a positive. And remember, our goal is we want to get y by itself. So one last thing we got to do, subtract 4 from both sides. That's gone. So I have -2x plus 4 for a final answer. So there's my equation of the line for that one. The last example is going to be really kind of tricky. This time we've got a perpendicular slope. They do give us the equation, and they give us the point that it goes with, so I already know that. No skeleton equation written for you, so you got to write it out yourself. Y minus blank equals blank times x minus blank. All right. So I'm going to walk you through how to find the perpendicular slope, and then I want you to try and solve it on your own, and I will show you, but I won't go through it. So perpendicular, remember, it's not the same slope. This is when lines cross at a 90-degree angle, but it also is when their slopes are opposite reciprocals. That means that if this slope is -1/6, I need to not only change the sign to positive, but I also have to flip the numbers, which makes it 6/1, or if I just simplify it, it's just 6, just the number 6. So 6 is going to go there. Pause here, fill in the rest of it, and then I'll try and work through it, and you can see the answer. So pause here, do it on your own. Here's the work for it.